Chili pepper. Chili pepper is something you think you already know. But the name pepper stuck to it from the very beginning, and it's been a 500-year-old mistake that nobody bothered to fix. In 1493, Columbus set sail on his second voyage with one very specific goal: find a direct sea route to the pepper-growing regions of India, because black pepper at the time was worth its weight in gold, and Europe was completely dependent on Arab traders to get it. Instead, he found the Americas and a completely unrelated spicy fruit. Not wanting to come home empty-handed, he called it pepper, even though it shares zero biological connection to true peppercorns, and brought it back to Spain. That wrong name followed chili peppers all the way to today. The more interesting question is why chilies are actually hot. Capsaicin, the compound responsible for the burn, doesn't create real heat. It binds to pain receptors in your mouth and tongue, the same receptors designed to detect dangerously high temperatures, and tricks your brain into thinking your mouth is on fire. Your brain responds by releasing endorphins to manage the pain, the exact same chemicals your body releases during intense exercise. Biologically, eating a hot pepper is essentially inflicting pain on yourself to get the high that comes after. It's not that surprising that people get addicted. Chili peppers have been in the Americas for at least 6,000 years, cultivated and used widely by indigenous peoples across Mexico and Central America in both cooking and medicine. After Columbus brought them back, chilies spread across the globe at a speed that's hard to believe. Within less than 100 years, they had worked their way into the cuisines of India, Thailand, Korea, and across Asia. Places where people today treat chili like it's always been part of their native food culture, even though it only arrived a few hundred years ago. In the US, the first commercial hot sauce appeared in 1807 in Massachusetts, but it wasn't until 1868, when Tabasco launched out of Louisiana, that hot sauce actually became part of mainstream American culture. And chili powder, the spice blend that most people assume comes straight from Mexico, was actually invented by Texas settlers in 1835 as a simplified way to recreate Mexican flavors for American kitchens. Mexicans tend to have feelings about that. Garlic is probably the oldest spice in documented human history, and the first evidence of that comes from somewhere nobody expected. Carvings inside the Great Pyramid of Giza show construction workers being given daily rations of garlic, onions, and radishes, not as a perk but as a standard-issue part of their diet to maintain strength and health while working under the Egyptian sun. This is essentially the earliest recorded use of a dietary supplement in human history, dating back to around 2500 BC. The ancient Persians took it even further. Records from the reign of King Cyrus, who ruled Persia from around 559 to 529 BC, document a single purchase of 395,000 bundles of garlic, which makes clear that garlic wasn't something you picked up for dinner. It was a strategic commodity at a national level. The sharp smell that everyone associates with garlic actually doesn't exist in a whole, uncut clove. When garlic is intact, it barely has any scent at all. It's only when you cut, crush, or chew it that an enzyme called allinase reacts with a compound called allin to produce allicin, which is both what creates the pungent smell and what gives garlic its antibacterial properties. This is the plant's defense mechanism against insects and bacteria, and humans eventually figured out that what protects the plant could also protect them. That's why civilizations in hot climates historically used far more garlic than those in colder regions. Food spoils faster in high temperatures, and garlic's natural antibacterial properties helped preserve it before refrigeration existed. Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and Southeast Asian cuisines all use significantly more garlic than Northern European ones, and that tracks almost exactly with the difference in average temperatures. It wasn't a culinary preference, it was adaptation. If you're enjoying this so far, drop a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people, and it takes about half a second. Black pepper. Black pepper literally changed the map of the world. In medieval Europe, black pepper was used to pay debts, settle taxes, and serve as dowry. Wealthy Germans were called Pfeffersäcke, which translates to pepper sacks, because they stored peppercorns the way others stored gold. When the Visigoths besieged Rome in 408 AD, part of the ransom agreement to spare the city included 3,000 pounds of black pepper. Not gold, not silver, but pepper. The reason was simple. For centuries, black pepper only grew in a narrow stretch along the Malabar coast of India, and the entire trade chain from there to Europe was controlled at different points by Arab traders, Venetian merchants, the Portuguese, and the British. Every time it changed hands, the price went up. By the time black pepper reached a European dinner table, it had passed through 5 or 6 middlemen and become expensive enough that only the nobility could use it regularly. That's what drove European nations to pour money and lives into finding a direct sea route to India that would cut out the intermediaries. Columbus set sail in 1492 with the specific aim of reaching India from the west to get cheaper pepper. And the result of that voyage changed world history in a way he never anticipated. It's fair to say that America was discovered partly because Europeans wanted affordable black pepper. Black, white, and green pepper all come from the same plant, Piper nigrum. The difference is purely in when they're harvested and how they're processed. Green pepper is the unripe fruit dried before it darkens. Black pepper is nearly ripe fruit that's been briefly cooked and then sun-dried. White pepper is fully ripe fruit soaked in water to remove the outer skin. The heat in all of them comes from piperine, which is chemically distinct from capsaicin in chili peppers. And piperine has one notable side effect. It increases your body's absorption of curcumin from turmeric by up to 2,000%. Indian cuisine has been combining turmeric and black pepper instinctively for thousands of years, long before biochemistry could explain why. Cinnamon. What's in the cinnamon jar on your spice rack is probably not real cinnamon, and most Americans have no idea. There are two completely different things that both get sold under the name cinnamon. The first is Ceylon cinnamon, also called true cinnamon, which comes from Sri Lanka and is made from the inner bark of the Cinnamomum verum tree. Workers peel the bark by hand into paper-thin layers and roll them into tight quills while still wet. Once dried, the sticks are so brittle and light that a small amount of pressure will crumble them. The second type is Cassia, which comes from China, Vietnam, and Indonesia. It's darker, thicker, harder, and has a much more aggressive, spicy sweet smell. Cassia makes up roughly 90% of the global cinnamon market, including nearly everything you find on American supermarket shelves. The difference isn't just about flavor. Cassia contains cumin, a compound that can damage the liver in high doses, at levels about 250 times higher than Ceylon cinnamon. A daily teaspoon of cassia can exceed safe thresholds for children and sensitive adults. Ceylon has almost none. This is why several European countries have strict limits on how much cassia can go into food products, while the US has no equivalent regulation, and both types get sold under the same cinnamon label with no distinction required. Cinnamon has a history long enough that it appears in the Bible, in Egyptian trade records dating back 2000 BC, and in Indian medical texts from the 8th century BC. Romans used it in embalming and religious ceremonies. During the Black Death in 14th century Europe, people burned cinnamon in the streets hoping the aromatic smoke would stop the plague from spreading. The logic was wrong, but not completely unreasonable, because cinnamon does have genuine antibacterial properties. The devil is in the details with cinnamon. If the stick in your hand bends without breaking, that's cassia. Real Ceylon cinnamon shatters immediately, because it's rolled from multiple paper-thin layers rather than cut from a single hard piece of bark. Go check your spice cabinet after this. Lemon zest. The part that most Americans throw in the trash every day is actually the most valuable part of the lemon. The thin yellow outer skin of a lemon is loaded with essential oils at a concentration far higher than the juice inside. That's why if you peel a thin strip of lemon zest and hold it near a candle flame, it sparks. Actual sparks, because the oils are flammable. Chefs in high-end restaurants know this, and almost never juice a lemon without also using the zest, because skipping it means throwing away the part where the citrus flavor is most concentrated. Lemon zest also has a longer history than you might expect. Romans and ancient Egyptians knew that writing on paper with lemon juice created invisible ink that only appeared when heated, because citric acid oxidizes and turns brown when exposed to heat. This technique was used for encoding messages from antiquity through 20th century spies. Lime zest is more bitter and sharp, while orange zest is sweeter and more floral. Each creates a completely different flavor dimension in cooking, and the biggest difference between them isn't actually taste but smell, because the essential oils in the zest become airborne and create a sense of flavor before you've even tasted anything. This is why chefs add zest at the end of cooking rather than the beginning. Heat burns off the oils almost immediately, and with them, the entire point of using zest in the first place. Turmeric. Turmeric has been on Earth for at least 4,000 years. Americans discovered it about 10 years ago. In Ayurvedic medicine in India, turmeric was used as an anti-inflammatory, a digestive aid, and a topical treatment from around the 8th century BC. Chinese medicine incorporated it by at least the 7th century AD. The first English-language recipe calling for turmeric was published in 1747, and it made its first appearance in an American cookbook in 1831. But turmeric only exploded in mainstream American consumer culture around 2015, when golden lattes and turmeric shots became a social media trend. A 4,000-year-old spice suddenly got treated as a discovery because it made it onto Instagram. The active compound in turmeric is curcumin, which has well-researched anti-inflammatory properties. But there's a catch. Curcumin is nearly impossible for your body to absorb on its own. Eat a spoonful of straight turmeric and most of the curcumin passes straight through your digestive system without ever entering your bloodstream. To actually absorb it, you need piperine from black pepper, which increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. Indian cuisine has been pairing turmeric with black pepper for thousands of years before biochemistry could explain the mechanism. That's a pretty good example of traditional knowledge running well ahead of the science. Turmeric is also an incredibly powerful natural dye, historically used to color silk fabric and to detect counterfeit goods in trade, because its color is nearly impossible to replicate cheaply. The deep orange yellow of many Buddhist monk robes comes from turmeric, and if you've ever gotten turmeric on a white shirt while cooking, you already know it's one of the most stubborn stains in the kitchen. I'm genuinely curious about something. Drop a comment and tell me where in the world you're watching from. I make this for people everywhere, and I love seeing where it actually reaches. Vanilla is the second most expensive spice on earth after saffron, and the reason for that is one of the strangest agricultural stories that exists. Vanilla comes from the seed pod of an orchid, Vanilla planifolia, native to Mexico. In the wild, the flower can only be pollinated by one specific bee, the Melipona bee, which only lives in Mexico and parts of Central America. When European colonizers took vanilla plants out of Mexico to grow in other tropical colonies, the plants thrived but never produced fruit because the bee wasn't there. For over 300 years, Mexico was the only place on Earth that could produce real vanilla, not because of climate or soil, but because of a single species of bee. In 1841, a 12-year-old enslaved boy named Edmond Albius on the French island of Réunion figured out how to hand-pollinate vanilla flowers using a small stick. A simple technique, but one that had to be performed flower by flower, on the one morning per year that each blossom actually opens. From that point, vanilla could be grown anywhere, but the entire process remained entirely manual. After hand-pollination, the pods take 9 months to mature, followed by 3 to 6 months of curing and drying before becoming a usable vanilla bean. From pollination to a sellable product is close to a year and a half, and every single step is done by human hands. Today, Madagascar produces about 80% of the world's vanilla supply, but more than 99% of the vanilla flavor in packaged American food, ice cream, baked goods, yogurt, even scented candles, comes from synthetic vanillin produced from wood pulp or petroleum byproducts. Synthetic vanillin costs roughly 20 times less than the real thing. When you pick up a container of grocery store vanilla ice cream and smell that familiar scent, there's a very good chance what you're smelling is chemically processed wood or crude oil, not an orchid. The Aztecs had been flavoring chocolate drinks with vanilla for centuries before the Spanish arrived in Mexico, and Columbus brought vanilla back to Europe on his second voyage in 1493. But Europeans didn't start using it widely until the 17th century, because for nearly 200 years, nobody could figure out how to get the plant to produce fruit outside of Mexico. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, subscribing actually matters more than you might think. Members of this channel get early access to videos before they go public, plus occasional behind-the-scenes content that doesn't make it to the main feed. The button's right there. Cumin is the second most widely used spice in the world after black pepper, and most Americans only know it from one thing: tacos. Cumin appears in the Bible, in Egyptian medical texts from 1500 BC, and in trade records of the Roman Empire. Romans used it the way Americans use salt and pepper, as a permanent fixture on the table at every meal, not something you think about. In the ancient Middle East and North Africa, cumin was used as a currency for trade because it was compact, easy to measure, and didn't spoil quickly. Cumin seeds look almost identical to caraway seeds, both from the carrot family, close enough that the two regularly get mixed up and substituted for each other in recipes. But their flavors are completely different. Cumin is earthy, warm, and slightly bitter, while caraway tastes more herbal, with a flavor closer to anise. Swap one for the other in a recipe and you'll know immediately that something is off, even if you can't place why. Whole cumin seeds and pre-ground cumin create noticeably different flavor profiles. Toasting whole cumin seeds in a dry pan for about 30 to 60 seconds releases the essential oils inside and transforms the smell from flat to smoky and complex. This is a fundamental technique in Indian and Middle Eastern cooking that almost never gets mentioned in American recipes, even though it takes less than a minute and makes a clear difference. If you cook with cumin regularly, try it once and you'll stop skipping it. Oregano. Oregano had been growing in North America since the 16th century, sitting quietly in the gardens of European settlers for nearly 400 years, and then it became famous almost overnight for a reason nobody saw coming: war. After World War II, American soldiers returning from Europe, particularly Italy, came home craving the food they'd eaten while stationed overseas. They wanted those flavors back, and pizza, which was barely a blip in mainstream American culture before the war, started spreading from Italian-American communities in New York and Chicago to the rest of the country. Oregano is the non-negotiable spice in pizza sauce. The result was that oregano consumption in the U.S. increased by 5,200% in the decade immediately following the war. That number sounds made up, but it's documented. Fresh and dried oregano work differently in ways that most home cooks don't realize. Fresh oregano has a milder flavor and works best added to dishes after they're done cooking. Dried oregano is actually stronger and is better suited for long-cooked dishes like sauces, soups, and braises, because the heat and time release the oils trapped in the dried leaves. Adding fresh oregano at the start of a sauce that cooks for an hour is a complete waste, because the heat destroys most of the flavor compounds long before the dish is finished. The ancient Greeks named it from the words oros and ganos, meaning joy of the mountain, because the plant grows wild on Mediterranean hillsides and the scent carries a long way. Greek physicians used it to treat poisoning and repel insects, which turns out not to be entirely wrong. Carvacrol, the main compound in oregano, has documented antibacterial and antifungal properties that modern science has confirmed. Paprika is considered a cornerstone of Hungarian cuisine and a national symbol of the country. 500 years ago, no Hungarian had ever seen it. Paprika is made from red peppers, a plant with origins entirely in the Americas. Before Columbus reached the New World in 1492, red peppers did not exist anywhere in Europe, Asia, or Africa. They arrived in Hungary through Ottoman trade routes sometime in the 17th century, only around 400 years ago, far later than most spices associated with European cooking. But Hungary adopted it in a way that no other country matched, developing its own pepper varieties, its own drying and grinding techniques, and working paprika into the center of an entire national cuisine within just a few generations. Today, when people think of paprika, they think of Hungary, even though this is a spice from Central America. Sweet paprika and smoked paprika are completely different products despite sharing the same name. Sweet paprika is made from dried red peppers ground without any smoking process, producing a bright red color and a mild, slightly sweet flavor. Smoked paprika, most associated with Spain, is made by drying the peppers directly over oak wood fires before grinding, which creates a deep reddish-brown color and a pronounced smoky flavor. Using sweet paprika in place of smoked in a meat dish will get you the same color with none of the smoke, a result that looks right but tastes completely different. Paprika contains more vitamin C than an orange by weight. This isn't obvious because drying and grinding destroys some of it, but the starting levels in fresh red peppers are high enough that significant amounts survive the process. Albert Szent-Györgyi, the Hungarian scientist who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1937 for discovering vitamin C, conducted part of his research using paprika because he didn't have enough oranges and citrus fruits, but happened to be living in the middle of Hungary's largest paprika-producing region. It's a whole different ballgame when the thing that earns you a Nobel Prize is the spice sitting on your kitchen shelf. That's every spice covered in this video. If you learned something you didn't know before, leave a comment and tell me which one surprised you most. And I'm genuinely curious where you're all watching from. Drop your city or country below. This channel has reached places I never expected, and I'd love to actually see that. Like, if this was worth your time, subscribe if you want more of it, and I'll see you in the next one.